I have the privilege to invite to the stage virtually my dear friend Dr. Benedict Oramah, the president of the Afreximbank, who receives now the tribute of the celebrity of the year 2021 in the relations of Brazil and Africa. Dr. Oramah was just about leaving the country where he's based now in Cairo, Egypt, and he sent us a video with this with his voice. So I'm pleased to welcome my dear friend Dr. Benedict Oramah.
I'm grateful to my friend and brother, Mr. João Bosco, the founder of Brazil Africa Institute, for his enduring effort in the promotion of trade and investment relations between Brazil and Africa. The policy dialogue and other initiatives promoted by the Brazil Africa Institute are helping to shape and improve knowledge of the opportunities and create the platform for deepening business-to-business relations between Africa and Brazil. In the current global environment, the relationship between Brazil and Africa is being forged in the context of South-South cooperation, as Africa continues to leverage trusted partnerships towards the realization of the goals of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Afreximbank is very pleased with the relationship and remains a true partner to the Brazil Africa Institute. We remain a partner to Brazil, given the long history of relation between Africa and Brazil. I'm humbled by the award of Personality of the Year for Brazil-Africa Relations by the Brazil Africa Institute. While this may be an individual award, it is a testament to the strategic roles our two institutions are playing in deepening the ties between Brazil and Africa. We will continue to do our absolute best to facilitate Brazil-Africa trade and investment relations, to continue to deepen the history that have bound us together. Africa, just like in all the other countries and continents in the world, has been very badly hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. But the continent has responded very strongly. At the very early stages of the pandemic, Afreximbank provided grant funding to selected countries to enable them to combat the pandemic and adjust to its impact. These assistance and grants enabled them to procure essential medical supplies, including personal protective equipment, test kits, and therapeutics. We also disbursed an amount of about $7 billion under a special facility we launched in March 2021 called the Pandemic Trade Impact Mitigation Facility. This facility enabled member countries to honor trade debt payments that were falling due, making it possible for many African countries to avert defaults on trade debt payments, which would have hampered a quick recovery. The facility also supported the import of essential food, medical equipment, therapeutics, and similar goods and services that the countries needed during those difficult times. As a way of getting the continent to begin to open up, Afreximbank worked with other partners to create the African Medical Supplies Platform, which made it possible for COVID-19 materials to be procured on a whole of Africa basis. This whole of Africa approach, enabled by the Africa Medical Supply Platform, made it possible for those procurements to come at much reduced price, sometimes at 30% below the usual ruling market price. The medical supply platform continues to run today and is being used to procure diverse medical supplies and medical equipment. As we also try to ensure that the continent opens as others are opening through the use of vaccines, Afreximbank intervened under the auspices of the Africa Vaccine Acquisition Task Team to enable the continent to procure 400 million doses of Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccines. This intervention, made possible through a $2 billion facility provided by Afreximbank, has enabled the continent to have enough vaccines to inoculate 30% of its population, half of the percentage recommended by the Africa CDC. We expect the balance to be provided by the COVAX facility. Beyond all the COVID-19 intervention we are doing, we've also provided other services to enable our countries and our continent to also leverage the opportunities that have come as we try to deal with the crisis. For example, we work with the UN Economic Commission for Africa to make it possible for African companies, SMEs, to repurpose their factories to produce COVID-19 supplies such as face masks and other personal protective equipment. About $200 million in facilities have been provided for this purpose and is being used by these companies today to produce these products. We expect that the companies will build on these and then become stronger and bigger, helping to develop regional supply chains as a result. With all the interventions targeted at assisting the continent to deal with the pandemic, enabling people to be able to save lives and livelihoods, Afreximbank has also been focused on the building forward. And we are doing this on the platform of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. Because this is a platform we all believe will provide the opportunity for the continent to become industrialized. It is a platform that will make it possible for us as a people to take control of our destiny. Afreximbank has a number of interventions that are being implemented and have gathered steam even under the conditions of the pandemic. For instance, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, PAPS, has been established and is currently being piloted in the West African Monetary Zone area. This payment system will make it possible for Africans to pay for intra-African trade in their national currencies. Afreximbank is supporting this through a $3 billion facility that will ensure payment finality and give confidence to the system. The payment system will save the continent about $5 billion in transfer charges annually. Return to the continent trade that is being diverted as a result of payment issues. And above all, begin to make it possible for everybody to participate in intra-African trade, be they SMEs or big companies. We've also launched a collaborative transit guarantee scheme intended to make it possible for goods to move across borders seamlessly. There are 16 landlocked countries in Africa. Currently, to move across borders requires posting multiple bonds, sometimes with cash backing. This bond we've now launched will ensure that only one bond done on a risk-sharing basis with national issuers will be the way to go and make it easier for goods to move, say, from Cape to Cairo without hindrance and disturbance. We've also moved into the digital space, knowing that digital platforms will be the way to leapfrog and vault the borders that divide us. Trade information is critical, and we've launched a trade information portal, which is artificial intelligence enabled, that will make it possible for information on trade across the continent to be accessible at the touch of a button. We've also launched a customer due diligence repository platform, also called the Mansa platform. This platform has been created to ease the cost of compliance, to restore the investor confidence in and attract investments into Africa. The Mansa platform issues Africa entity identifier numbers that act as a passport for accessing certain services. It is this identifier number that will make it possible for participation in the payment system. It is this identifier number that will in future make it possible for businesses to access trade finance from Afreximbank and perhaps other commercial banks going forward. It is this identifier number that will make it possible for foreign investors, international businesses to have confidence in the holder of such numbers. Afreximbank is working with the AFCFTA Secretariat and the African Union Commission to put in place an AFCFTA adjustment facility that will cushion African countries from fiscal revenue losses that may arise from the implementation of the AFCFTA. Some countries rely on tariffs as a source of fiscal revenue. In some countries in Africa, fiscal revenue as a percentage of total revenue account for as much as 70%. What the adjustment facility is intended to do is to help these countries to adjust in an orderly manner with the tariff removals that the AFCFTA implementation will require. It will also support companies and the countries to retool and prepare to implement the different protocols that are related to the AFCFTA. We've estimated that it will cost about $8 billion over the next 6 to 10 years to implement these activities. Afreximbank has already put in place a $1 billion facility to support the facility. We are then working with the ministers of trade and the ministers of finance, the central banks, under the auspices of the AFCFTA Secretariat, to make sure that this facility is implemented as quickly as possible. We are also supporting the developments of industrial parks, special economic zones, and similar infrastructure to make it possible for Africa to produce the goods that will enter intra-African trade. Without production of goods that are value added, we will not have the goods that we can trade amongst ourselves. And that is why we are investing, as we speak today, an aggregate amount of about $1 billion towards supporting the emergence of these industrial parks that will help us manage the impact of infrastructure deficits in our different countries. We also know that one of the problems our companies face in moving towards value-added activities is lack of access to patient capital. We do not have equity funds that operate in a way that would lead to the emergence of companies in this field. That is why Afreximbank has created a fund for export development in Africa, which is mandated to support industrialization and export development, particularly in light manufacturing and agro-processing. The fund also supports activities in fintech, financial services, the creative industry, in logistics, and trade enabling infrastructure. The headquarters of the fund is in Kigali, Rwanda, and it has started operations. Brazil and Africa have a long history of trade and cultural relationships. We share similar agroclimatic and geological conditions. Africa and Brazil can leverage this platform to make the AfCFTA implementation successful. The investment goods and technologies Africa needs to build viable supply chains in agribusiness, auto industry, aviation, and other sectors can be sourced from Brazil. Africa can also offer Brazil a viable investment platform under the AfCFTA. We see opportunities for our two economies to share ideas, to share markets, to build on a long history of relationships in making Africa great and also making Brazil great. We look forward to building on the work we are doing with the Brazil Africa Institute to realize the aspirations of the leadership of Africa and Brazil.
What a great moment. Listen to the voice of my friend Benedict Oramah. Seems that we are in the right path. We are in the right position.